Lawrence Shulman gives us a different perspective with respect to preparing and beginning skills and supervision, where he talks about preliminary phases in terms of tuning in and what are some of the reservations and advantages of tuning in and the beginning phase of contracting. And in the preliminary phases of tuning in, what he's talking about is how the supervisor tries to develop a relationship with a new worker and how you try to become sensitive to the concerns and feelings and issues that may be present in this relationship in understanding where this new worker may be, their fears and concerns, and what may be troubling them. And he gives some different kinds of examples of this particular situation with a new hospital worker and so on, where, for example, tuning in the justice field may be the feelings that a worker may have in terms of reservations with going into the field or going into a dangerous community, and understanding how to work through those particular feelings and reservations that individual may have. There are advantages to tuning in, and the most significant advantage is getting to understand the staff person's perspective in terms of what's going on, and being able to tune in to that particular staff person. The reservations of tuning in is that it may not always be easily to understand where the staff person may be coming from. And in this beginning phase of working with the staff person, Shulman talks about contracting skills and four key skills with respect to contracting, and those would include sharing your perspective in terms of sense of purpose, describing the role, eliciting feedback, and discussing mutual obligations in terms of what needs to be done as you begin to contract with an employee and working with them. Shulman then goes on and talks about the new supervisor and some variations that the new supervisor may have in working with the employee. And the new supervisor goes from practitioner to supervisor, and there are some transitioning skills that the new supervisor needs to understand that they go from, and that is shifting from direct service to supervision. It can be a difficult, and it also can be a trying time, and getting some understanding of where you're coming from, and beginning to understand your own feelings, and working with other individuals. There are changes with respect to social relationships with staff, and you need to be able to understand that your relationships with staff will change as you become this new supervisor. You need to be able to avoid stereotypes in working with staff, and he talks about different kinds of key factors and skillfulness that you must have in terms of getting a positive response from individuals, and also continued resistance that you may have in working with staff, and what kind of resistance you may be dealing with. And then the hired gun syndrome, a common variation on the theme of the new supervisor, appears when the supervisor is brought in from the outside, and they may be referred to as the hired gun to make changes and bring about a new course of action. The affirmative action in promotions and hiring that Shulman talks about is interesting in that there are some systematic efforts underway in many human service organizations to increase the number of minority members and women in management, and to help bring in new people in terms of working with staff and having a diversified workforce, not just in management and not only just in frontline staff. And how do you work through these particular issues is an interesting point that's discussed in Shulman. The supervisory beginnings with the new employee, and Shulman, I think, gives some interesting discussion there in terms of how the supervisor is already established in the system, and the staff member may be new in working with these different individuals, like the inexperienced worker, and what you as the supervisor need to understand in working with the inexperienced employee, and how you begin to develop a relationship with them, and how you begin to help the new inexperienced employee adapt. And then what do you do in order to integrate that new staff person, that inexperienced staff person, within the work environment? What kind of orientation do you provide that staff person in helping them manage getting into the environment and settling in? And how do you integrate them with other staff or new staff as they come to work? And a supervisor needs to be able to tap the resources of the staff group and to provide help for that staff person, and how to utilize the experienced staff and involve experienced staff in working with the new person and helping them gain some ownership in terms of the team effort. And then Shulman goes further into talking about the abrasive new worker, and what does the student as a new worker, and how do you work with that student as a new worker, learning the field and the profession and the responsibility that they have with staff, and then also the abrasive new worker, and how does one interact with this individual in helping them work more, helping them become a part of the team in this process. Okay, it's interesting. I've already talked about characteristics of a good conference, and I discussed this at the tail end of the slide 8, where we talked about I'm sorry, not slide 8, slide 10, where we talked about ending the conference and how do you know that you've had a good conference. And these are the 8 characteristics that were described in that earlier portion. Application exercise. What would be a good example of a good educational supervisory experience in your work environment? Give an example of a situation that you've had with a supervisor, or give an example that you as a supervisor have helped provide for a supervisee. Readings for week 6 are Kedushin and Harkness, chapters 5. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions. Please ask.